President Trump's counselor, Kellyanne Conway, says statements made by MSNBC hosts that she was only working for Trump for the hefty paycheck are untrue. Yes, clearly she's also working for President Trump because she lost a bet. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, do you want to know state secrets? Come on down to the White House. President Trump will tell you. Welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Christian Bladt on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Joined, as almost always, by Scott Moore at S-Man80 at the far end of the desk for those watching on YouTube. And our regular, irregular host, our frequent fill-in host, Brooke Solis at Brooke Solis TV. And I just want to make sure, Taylor or no Taylor? I always get confused.
Depends on the day. Brooke Solis is perfect.
Because that's what the online handle is. And that, you know what, that's what it all comes down to. Is if you don't have a Twitter name, you kind of don't exist.
Exactly.
So welcome. We're so glad you're with us. And as I was joking beforehand, you know, we can only have one strong Latina woman per episode. So Chelsea's gone, then it's all right. But that's just a joke because next week we're going to have you both. So
two token Latinas.
That's right.
At once.
Exactly. It'll be an even match, you know. And then
I don't know that it's going to be even.
Well, if Scott's not here, then I'll be the token. So, but Scott, you're always here. Almost. Anyway,
I have no life.
Don't forget to follow the show's Twitter at Trump Report ABTV. Please follow us there. Like us on YouTube. Comment and rate on iTunes. I can't stress how important that is for the show because that bumps up where you can find us. If you type in politics, if you Google Trump, you might get us first. You probably won't, but if we get nice comments from all of you out there, then we will. And Josh in the booth, if we can get the chat up when you have a chance, because I always like to see which of our friends are out there. And, you know, a lot of the time there are people who are not our friends who are in there, but we appreciate them tuning in all the same. They have terrible things to say sometimes, but yet they come back.
We appreciate all views.
Yeah, we appreciate you in a weird way.
I like seeing the other
side. The big story is, of course, President Trump telling tales out of school, revealing intelligence secrets to the Russians in the Oval Office for humanitarian reasons, things about ISIS, intelligence that he received apparently from the Israelis. Then we've since heard that, you know, what he shared, people could die. So, Brooke, as our guest, and of course, ladies first, when you heard this story, just the beginnings of this story, sorry, I saw a comment in the booth in there that has nothing to do with anything. Danny H., can ABC bring back Last Man Standing? And he's bringing that up because people think that that's a political decision, not a sixth year of a sitcom gets much more expensive for mediocre ratings for a guy who was really big 25 years ago. But we're really glad you're here, Danny.
Hey,
anyway,
everything else is coming back these days. Roseanne, Will and Grace.
Well, yeah, but this is a new show. So what they should do is pitch like 10 episodes of Home Improvement because that will come back.
I'm sure that will come
anyway,
back.
I haven't seen Last Man Standing, but I thought it was a reference to the Last Man Standing.
I thought it would be the Last Man Standing of
Trump.
If you've ever seen Tim Allen, if you've ever even seen 5 minutes of Home Improvement, you've seen Last Man Standing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It is the same thing essentially.
So, what did you think when you first heard about the story that President Trump, he does a lot of crazy things, but telling secrets to the Russians who he's not friends with, he barely talks to, but he's telling them secrets in the White House. What did you think when you first heard this, Brooke?
Well, I was by no means shocked. I didn't really question it, given Trump's history with Twitter and impulsivity and inability to kind of keep his mouth shut. But then more so, I mean, think of the timeline of what has gone on with this entire thing. He just fired James Comey. He's meeting with Lavrov and Kislyak. Am I saying that right? Yes.
I think you are. And I avoided saying their names.
Me too, because I was afraid I wouldn't get it right.
And I didn't think, I thought for a second, no, he couldn't be that dumb to do something like that.
Well, in the Oval Office, like if you're gonna give secrets to the Russians, do it the good old-fashioned way.
And of course,
in the basement, you know, without any, away from all watchful eyes.
Right, and of course, none of our press was there to be able to report on it immediately. But
thanks to the Russian press, in all honesty, for covering that story, because it's like, oh, is that what happened? thanks, Pravda. I don't even know if there still is a Pravda, but let's just assume there is. I mean,
and they're like laughing and snickering. Meanwhile, in Russia, in their media, saying, it's that easy. All we gotta do is go in, and Trump's gonna give it all to us. I mean, the fact that he fell for that, it's more of a reason to obviously be done with him. But the plot thickens even further.
Yes, because late breaking information that before the show Brooke mentioned in the way, well, you heard this. I pretended for about 4 seconds that I had heard it, but then I realized I was going to need you to explain it to me. So let's have you explain it to us and to our audience.
Well, obviously, as you guys know, that there is now a memo that insiders are claiming that Comey wrote after his meeting or after his dinner, that infamous dinner that night.
By the way, do we know how good the cake was at that dinner? Because we usually hear that there's excellent chocolate cake. I'm going to assume it was like a sponge cake or a coffee cake.
I don't know.
Because we haven't heard anything about the cake.
It wasn't very good.
I see a creme brulee in this dinner for some
I mean, if
reason.
it's a
like
creme
hard
brulee.
on
Or
top
some
and-
kind of fruits in the cake that was so.
There was pie, but it wasn't a la mode. Anyway,
wasn't two scoops of ice cream on.
Yeah, well,
It was
of course he
fantastic.
gets all the ice cream.
Everybody
So
knows my pie is the best.
The Comey memo that says that Trump, said, I hope that you can be done with this, meaning the Flynn investigation.
Exactly. Let's
Not
just be
suspicious
done
at
with
all.
this. Not suspicious. Not obstruction of justice, clearly. But just recently, it was reported that Congressman Chaffetz, if I'm saying his name
Jason
right.
Chaffetz from
Jason Chaffetz,
Utah.
good old
Utah,
Chaffetz
yeah.
from Utah, also chairman of the House Oversight Committee, has already written a letter to the FBI requesting that they turn in to Congress all internal memos, anything written in terms of discussion between Comey and Trump, and they have a deadline due date, and that's May 24th. So I am hoping that all of this will reveal some more truth.
Oh, man, that's a
It's
Wednesday,
only a week.
isn't it?
Yeah. That's a,
Why can't it be a Tuesday?
I know. Why can't it be?
We were just talking about all this great news comes out on a Tuesday, and
It's not going up on a Tuesday.
Yeah, but that's all right. We'll have to talk
It's
about
a weird
it.
day to have it due. Also, I guess it's before the
Well,
Memorial Day.
I
when
guess
everyone
he gave
leaves
him a
town.
week.
I was gonna say their work weekends
Yeah,
on
they end so
Wednesday,
they can
even
go
when it's
home.
not Memorial
Right.
Day. So I guess that's probably why it was Wednesday. But as of course as Scott was talking about, Jason Chaffetz is let's just say that there might be some oversighting. I know that's not a real word, but it sounded funny, right? Someone's providing oversight to Jason Chaffetz at the moment as well, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of glass houses. There's a lot of people with big old rocks in their hands, and
he's already said he's not running in 18.
well, not for the House.
No.
But does that mean he's running for the Senate, or is he going to run for president?
But why would you leave early in 18 when you're elected every 2 years to go run in 20, or so it doesn't make sense.
Maybe so
There's
that he
something
can
else.
be the next host of the Celebrity Apprentice,
Apparently,
because
yeah.
that's the clear path to the
apparently.
presidency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arnold was not aware of the Constitution that he
No.
can't run, and also the
Right.
ratings were terrible. So he's pretty much done. Schwarzenegger. Anyway, So Scott, as you hear about all of this, and we'll talk about the way that the White House reacted in a moment, but you hear the story originally, and your thoughts, and have your thoughts intensified in the days since?
Why? I have two thoughts. I'm like, it's either does he really want to be president, or is this a big FU to
Yes, thank you for cleaning it up.
the rest of the world, like I can do whatever I want sort of thing. So that's why I can just, the optics of it, just the next day after the whole thing of firing Comey is like, let me just meet with the Russian ambassadors in a closed-door meeting in the Oval Office without allowing the American press to come in. I mean, the whole thing is just so absurdly crazy that those are the only two conclusions I can come up with. Either he's trying to do everything he can to prove that he doesn't want to be president anymore without actually resigning, or he just wants to just say, I can do whatever I want, and I'm going to prove it to you guys by just doing all this ridiculous stuff, having the meeting with the ambassadors, telling them, top secret information because he ostensibly can, as president, declassify anything and try to get away with whatever he wants. And it's just such a bizarre... It's just beyond bizarre.
I think it's a combination of sheer ignorance and that he believes that he's above the law.
Right. Well, I think there is definitely that. He definitely thinks he can do whatever he wants.
He thinks he can get away with whatever.
I
And
mean,
he's also not completely educated about our laws. That's the problem.
And telling the director of the FBI, hey, let's make that go away, and then just firing him despite being under investigation and wondering, like, why is everyone so upset? Sure, you can fire him, but just realize that there's going to be repercussions.
Right.
And I think that that's it's not even surprising. That's just the most telling thing that we've seen over. What is this? This is only 115 days,
I know,
Scott?
my God, it
15,
feels
16.
like it's been 115 years at this point. It's
Tell me
just, I
about it.
can't, it's exhausting.
So over these 115 days, I think it's just his surprise, exasperation, and anger that there are consequences to these actions, and being held accountable is something that he wasn't prepared for. As it goes towards this story, I guess Sean Spicer did a great job, and everybody in the White House press corps. It's really interesting because you have the story about Sean Spicer hiding in the bushes, which of course played into you knew Saturday Night Live was going to do something.
The bushes.
He became one with the bushes, which he will probably have a lot more time for walking in the bushes soon. But we've been saying that for we had a. I don't know what we called it. We had like a Trump watch to see who was going to get fired first, and I don't think we picked Comey.
Comey was not on that
list. He was not. Yeah, we figured it was Spicer or Kellyanne Conway, and
who did I say? No, I forget.
Yeah, but it wasn't James Comey.
No, nobody had James Comey. I can.
Yeah.
Did you say Trump?
No, I forget who I said.
Yeah.
Oh, I said Bannon, I think it was.
Right, which seemed like he was on the way out the last time you were here, and he's definitely back where he belongs, lurking in the shadows, where he's most comfortable, like most golems are. But at the same time, it's just James Comey was the guy to get fired. But you just feel like at some point, Sean Spicer, they're going to have to move on, and when we start to see other people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She comes out there and it's like, well, which, by the way, I mean, I feel like President Trump said some pretty terrible things about Mike Huckabee, too, but nobody really cares.
But yet, Mike Huckabee's still on the Trump bandwagon and still tweeting these horrible jokes, which...
Well, they are bad jokes,
horrible jokes.
Yeah, I can't even remember the
Trump
one
train.
that he said on Cinco de Mayo, which is probably good that I can't remember.
Well, he had a couple like today about Trump being the other guy on the grassy knoll of the Kennedy assassination, and
everyone knows that was Ted Cruz's father.
These things that are just not funny, and still supporting Trump. So.
Storage Yard resident, great friend of the show, chimes in that Hillary believes that she is above the law. I think you're right. Whether
I think
or not,
she probably does too.
Sure,
I think a lot of these people believe
Sure.
that. Bill Clinton clearly believed he was above the law, that he could lie under oath, and so no reason to believe that Hillary doesn't think that. I would have to also say that President Trump definitely thinks he's above the law. He may have thought
I
that
think he's in a whole other level than even Bill or Hillary. He's just in a whole other stratosphere.
Before he was president, he may have thought
Yeah,
that just because he's
Right.
rich. Yeah.
think
Well,
he
because he's never had to answer to anybody before.
Exactly.
He started a business that he took over from his dad. He's always been the boss. He's always been able to kind of do what he wanted to do.
Sue
And
his way out of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the right
Use
lawyers. Surround himself.
Whenever
with
he's
the
had to
And-
answer to someone, he divorces them. So maybe he's like going to serve us with papers. Maybe there's going to be a
Please.
knock at our door, and we're
Take
like,
everything,
America,
as long
you've
as you
been
go."
served. And we did not sign a prenup with President
We'd
Trump.
rather pay
So-
than you stay. Yes.
Sorry, Scott. You were actually about to say something much more insightful than I was.
No. I mean, it was basically.
It was basically that.
It was basically that.
But as I sort of circle back to the way that the White House press corps was, not the White House press corps because those are people who report on it, but the press secretary, that division, ill prepared for something this significant because they can, again, cleaning it up, they can BS their way out of almost anything. This one was a lot tougher. It's a lot easier to point at pictures and say that there's twice as many people there that there really are than to say like, no, this, because they always tell us that things didn't happen, that we know happened. And
and then the problem is then Trump goes back around and says the complete opposite thing after they've already said stuff. So he basically throws his team under the bus there.
Well, he's I believe he said something along the lines of he's a really busy guy.
Yeah.
So you can't expect his representatives to always be right or always provide accurate
Well, I'd say
information.
that's an important, probably at the top of their list.
I think
that's their job.
Well, that's
As
what
their
my
job.
thought was that's exactly why you should depend on
Communication between the two.
Like, you can understand him being asked about things like, I haven't been briefed on that yet. But he would never say that. He'd always say, like, oh, yeah, we have the top people on it. Even though he doesn't know what you're talking about, He's like, we've got Frederick Douglass on that.
I think as this continues to happen, the credibility of the White House just continues to erode, especially with what occurred with McMaster going out and saying that the information was false that he spread.
That the Washington Post article had said.
Exactly, this intelligence to the Russian ambassadors. But more importantly, if you think about the exact words that they use, we did not share the sources, we did not share methods. Instead of what the Washington Post was actually reporting, they weren't talking about sources or methods. They were talking about specific intelligence that could potentially put us in jeopardy with our ally. They didn't say whom or the way in which it happened. And now they're using specific little words to try to get around what the truth is. And it's really sad because, unfortunately, a lot of people out there don't know how to read between the lines or don't know how to decipher that. And so they're like, White House says it's false, fake news, fake news. It's so easy to just throw it away. But of course, we're seeing now that the truth eventually gets there, and sometimes it has to be written out for people, and that's obviously what's happening now.
Yeah, and I think that I had read a headline that I was at first very disappointed in what the headline was, but I actually clicked through and read it, and it was basically referring that there was cheering in the press room at the Washington Post, and I was like, oh, because they have this story and they think they got Trump. No, they were really excited because it has like the most clicks of I think any news article,
exactly.
or at least this year. So I was like, all right, that's the kind of thing they can cheer about. But I actually thought, I was like, yikes. I mean, we know that the media has a bias in a lot of instances,
well,
but let's not cheer.
They should have been cheering about the tweet where Trump basically admitted that he shared this information that was important. Intelligence. We should
get back to Comey for a second, because you reminded me when you mentioned the tweet that President Trump said that James Comey better hope that there are no, I'm using air quotes, tapes. Yeah, for those listening on iTunes, we all did it. There's no tapes. Yeah. So does that mean that there are no tapes, or does he actually understand that it would be like a digital recording and people don't have, they're not strapped with a cassette recorder?
I think Trump still lives in the 80s, which is probably the type of conversation he thought he was having when he was sitting with Comey, like sitting around with Roger Stone and his own mafia cronies back in the 80s, and he's like, hey man, we're gonna let that slide, right? And didn't realize that no, you're actually in an official position and you can't just like
well, you see that tweet, and it was again something that they incorporated in SNL, the comparison to Nixon. But it's like, you don't want to be like alluding that you're the guy who tapes.
When
everything.
I hear tapes, I think of American Psycho. Doesn't he say like, I gotta go return some? Is it tapes? Or
I believe that's what he says.
I love that movie.
I'm just thinking like these old cassette tapes, and they're just spinning around, and they're that's what they have in what he has in the Oval Office.
Our friend R. Scott Brown in the chat says that Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Hey, did she marry one of Bernie's kids? Just kidding. That would have been funnier if Chelsea would have had a heart attack. Sarah Huckabee Sanders did her presser looking like she just came from a Grateful Dead cover band concert, and someone gave her a cardigan and a string of pearls to wear.
Why the pearl necklace, Sarah Huckabee?
Well, I mean, it goes with everything. It's a great
the
accessory.
conservative show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what it is. And I believe Mike Huckabee said earlier today that people responding to, commenting on her and criticizing her are being sexist.
Oh, I read that.
Which I think not criticizing her for any reason, like just like, well, she's a woman, let's not criticize her, which first of all would not happen. But I think that would actually be sexist. It's like, well, I want to say some bad things, but she's a girl, so she can't handle it. So
she should be glad she's fair game.
Yeah, right, exactly. But, not big game. Because
but I get it. No, but I was saying, speaking of that, that's what they were saying, like the appearance. They were talking about her appearance and that she was, overweight and these type of things, which I do think ends up being something that's more generated towards women than it is towards men. And that's
but there's a lot of
calling Trump out of being fat.
There's a lot of
never really talked about.
There's a lot of pieces and commentary on Sean Spicer. He is not
being
svelte,
a little stumpy
and
guy.
I'm pretty sure he has gained half a Huckabee in the time that he's been serving in the White House. So
not in height, guys.
No, absolutely not. So I can't be surprised by anything at this point.
Guys,
yes.
Do you think that there is a memo, that Comey has these detailed memos?
I think that if you're going to assume that happened, but also now this is a guy who's maybe trying to save face.
But he's a former prosecutor. Someone mentioned that up there.
Somebody mentioned that. Of course, he wrote memos because that's what they do. I think it's definitely possible.
Oh yeah.
I think it's very possible that President Trump would say that and think that, even though he's the president talking to the head of the FBI, he might actually think like, well, we're just having dinner, so this is going to be off the record. But of course, that's kind of not the way the FBI works.
Exactly.
And nothing
or even
about
the way a lawyer thinks.
Right, or even just being president, there is no real off the record anymore when you're dealing with business. And that's the thing too, is that supposedly he'd asked for Comey's loyalty. I mean, it's just that's just not how it works as president. You can maybe say that when you're the boss and you're working with somebody. I mean, he just doesn't understand that government does not work in the same way that he thinks he could operate his businesses. And I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. It's so crazy. It's like I don't know what's going to happen next.
I mean, I definitely believe that there are detailed memos. I think Comey is a smart man.
Well, I think so too.
Have written down everything. What I think that's going to be said on the other end is going to be, well, he could say that he said anything and write it down.
But that's the thing, and but the problem with the whole situation is the fact that Trump constantly changes what he's saying, so there is no credibility. And he talked about, firing Comey last week because he was because of how Comey handled the Hillary thing, which was clearly not true. And the thing is, if he really had nothing to hide, he would be the first person to say if he's clean, let's hire a special prosecutor. I'm going to prove to you.
Here are my tax
returns.
returns.
Everything. Here's my tax returns. Here's, I so know that I have no involvement at all, that I can have a special prosecutor, put this thing to rest, make the Democrats look horrible. But the fact is, he doesn't do that, and he makes it worse for himself. And the thing is, he's the one that's making all of this worse for himself.
Let's work with the hypothetical for a second.
Ruining
that
his
what you
presidency.
said that he could do. Let's just say that all that was true. There's nothing to be gained from holding it all back.
Right.
The tax returns, I think, would embarrass him in one way or another.
Right, sure. And
Like,
that's
I think that one I get. But in terms of
I do get it, but there's
I
definitely
had no
things that are hidden
wrongdoing
there.
here.
Right.
If everything's on the up and up,
Right.
Holding it back isn't doing you any favors.
No, it makes it look like you're hiding something, and that's part of the thing with Nixon was, the cover-up ended up being worse than the crime, and the fact that he's covering things up and trying to backtrack and lying and eroding his credibility makes it seem like there is something there.
Oh, yeah.
And what is it exactly? And he keeps thinking it's going to go away, and it's not going to go away, especially the way he's handling it. It's only going to intensify and get worse for him.
I think one thing that I've often thought about Richard Nixon, I thought that maybe he spent the last decades of his life just sort of staring at that 1972 electoral college map, where he's like, oh yeah, we did not need to do that.
No,
like,
exactly.
It wasn't even close.
It wasn't even close.
In that way, I feel like Trump will always have that framed election night map, the one that you colored in on Trump versus Hillary.
But the thing is, he will never have anything as close that Nixon had in 72. That's the thing.
No one will ever have that.
No one will really have that anymore.
Well, I guess
Reagan
Reagan-Mondale was
the same.
That was basically
the same in '84. But I'm saying no one will have that in modern times. But certainly not him.
No,
Trump would never.
But at the same time, he's just gonna look at all that beautiful red.
But we don't know that he would have had that had there not been the interference, though, with Russia.
Right. But the thing is like, and that's the thing going back to Nixon, is he would have been a really well-regarded president if he didn't get in his own way. And Trump, not that he would ever be in the same caliber because he doesn't have the experience or the ability. He could have had a decent chance of at least meddling along. And not self-sabotaging, and now he's ruining any kind of credibility or any chance to even have that.
I have to wonder if, Roger Stone, you guys know who this guy is?
Yes.
Little trickster.
Yep.
If he's still behind the curtain kind of telling Trump what to do. He was also implicated in Watergate.
Right, as like 19
I was
years
going
old.
to say.
He has an actual tattoo of Nixon on his back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I do too, so
right.
there's
Well,
nothing
mine's on
weird
my
about
butt, but
Who
anyway.
doesn't?
By the way, legitimately, I got married at the Richard Nixon Library because my wife's from that town. So,
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't have the tattoo anyway. Laser hair removal. But anyway,
Hair
laser tattoo removal.
You had to get the hair off first.
You got to get the hair to get to the Nixon tattoo. Anyway, sorry.
I can't imagine. Well, I keep questioning myself. Sometimes I lay in bed at night and wonder, Trump can't really be this much of a jerk and that stupid. But then I think, okay, he's playing games. And then I think when I look back, I don't know if you guys saw that Get Me Roger Stone.
I have not seen it yet, but I know
you've
it's
got to
on
watch
Netflix.
it. It's on Netflix,
I do want to watch it.
You should definitely watch it if you're interested in politics at all.
Yeah.
But Roger Stone essentially advised Nixon similarly to do the things that Trump is now doing, and it makes me wonder, like, who is telling him what he should and shouldn't do, because this guy is very what's the word, easily influenced by others, I would say.
Oh
yeah, no,
absolutely.
I think that's, and look, there are obviously a lot of questions about who has his ear the most. We talked a lot about Jared Kushner. I think that was the last time you were here. And Bannon's a little bit more towards the back, and especially because, rightly so, Steve Bannon was like, you really shouldn't fire James Comey. But he's like, shut up, Bannon. What do I even have you for? And, I mean, he's right. It's just like, no matter what your reason was to fire him, like, the timing was not good.
Well, yeah, and it's like he has a different flavor of the week. You know,
Yeah.
at one point he's listening to Steve Bannon, then he's out, then it's Jared, then, you know, and it's Ivanka, and it's, you know, then who's the next person? Is it Roger Stone?
Depending on who's visiting
Yeah,
as
who's
well.
around. It's like whoever's in front of his face is the one who has his ear, and it's also a little scary too, because you don't know who else is influencing him. And the fact is, he doesn't take advice from people who've been in politics and have been working for a long time, like, you know, we thought he might do, and he's not.
Well, and we also are expecting, as we were alluding to earlier, some new faces there in the press room, you know, at the podium. And very blatantly, Fox News' Kimberly Guilfoyle is really trying to get that Sean Spicer job. You know, we talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. That was sort of like a trial balloon to see how that went. And I don't say balloon to imply that she was fat. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, it's actually not what I meant.
She's very svelte.
Yeah, but speaking of balloons, Kimberly Guilfoyle, best known, of course, as the ex-wife of Gavin Newsom, the San Francisco. She was best known. I guess now she's best known for working at Fox News. And I mean, you know, it's a good job, I guess. But I don't. I mean, she also has the prosecutor background, so sure, why not? But she's really pushing for it. I was reading an article about it, and I think that if you're going to make a change from Spicer, you should definitely go in a very different direction. You know, I think that, you know, Bill O'Reilly doesn't have a job right now. It's just something to think about. I mean,
keep him on the podium and
too
away
soon.
from people. Keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, well, you know, he had no problem with his hands. It was really just on the phone, the late night call. I think to Kimberly Guilfoyle actually was one of them. But anyway, you know,
She's
so
trying to get away from all of
yeah, that's one way to get away from Bill
Yeah.
O'Reilly. Just trap yourself in the White House.
Exactly.
So Scott, as you sort of hear about this, and you know, do you feel like Trump will just sort of put, you know, another one of the same lackeys in there, or will he sort of think outside the box a little bit? Or,
You know, it depends how desperate he gets. They were talking about this, and that was the whole kind of thing yesterday, the whole spin and some of the theories where he was going to let him go and let Steve Bannon go. And, you know, that was the thing yesterday, and that felt like 100 years ago yesterday, because it was so different from today. So now that's sort of on the back burner, and it's like you just don't know what's going to happen, because, you know, it was just last week that Comey was fired, and so much has happened since then. So on one hand, you feel like, again, it just depends who has his ear at the moment and which direction he's going to go in. Because as we said to Brandt last week, and he was talking about how he thought, you know, Spicer was the opposite of Trump, and I felt like he's the Trump protege. Like, he does do Trump's bidding, and he will go out there and say these blatant, absurd lies and to keep with what Trump wants him to say. So I feel like it would behoove Trump to get someone who's going to kind of stand up and basically be more press friendly and be able to not, because of course all press secretaries are going to spin a little bit for their boss, and they want to project the best image, just like a press release or anything else. But you do need someone that can be a little bit more press friendly, and someone that's going to be able to kind of be a little bit more of a smooth talker, which Trump is not. He's not a smooth talker. He doesn't say the certain things that he needs to say, and Spicer to me is too much of that lackey. So it really depends, you know, going back to it, of who has his ear and what's going to happen the next few days, because like I said, he's just self-imploding right now, this presidency.
yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely accurate. You know, it's let's just say it's not going well, but you could have said that at any point, and those same it's actually somehow been only 113 days now. We lost 2 days,
we went
so
ahead.
2 days are actually tacked into the end now. So sorry about that, Scott. But one thing that I personally feel, no matter what all the mounting evidence is, just because of the way that Congress is currently structured, there's not going to be any impeachment. There's not even going to be hearings. We have this Wisconsin Congressman, Mark Pocan, which, you know, obviously is a delicious pie, which is a bad joke. I can't believe I opened my mouth and said it. I apologize already. Mark Pocan says we're an hour closer on an impeachment clock, which, by the way, selling the impeachment, I heard that and I was like, let's market the impeachment clock. You know, you have Trump right at noon, you know, and just
So
or midnight.
you're saying
really.
you don't think there's going to be an impeachment?
Well, I just think if you had, you know, a Democratic Senate, a Democratic like 60 seat majority, you might get that. And depending on how everything was set up, I think it is going to take more than this. Basically, Trump's going to have to kill a guy in the White House.
On live TV.
And yeah, right. Because if you just hear that
hear
he did,
about
that's
it,
just
then you
fake
still
news.
don't know that's
But
true.
then he might claim that somehow,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
those
It
are
has to be on
CGI. Yeah.
Well, he'll say Alec Baldwin did it, most likely.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It was like, it's not really
that
him.
wasn't me, yeah.
Look, I think, first of all, the impeachment thing is thrown around quite easily. But it is thrown around easily because, in a sense, Congress can do impeachment for really anything they deem. It doesn't have to necessarily be unlawful. So there's a little bit of difference there. It doesn't have to say that he broke the law. It just has to feel like they feel it's offensible that he can't handle his job.
Could they hold impeachment hearings if you wear white after Labor Day? Like, it's really like whatever they feel like is an infringement?
Realistically.
Which, by the way, I agree. I
agree too.
Very
And
tacky.
that it's beyond.
Sorry, you were going to make a real point.
But the point is that yes, on one hand, right now, because that base is still there in Trump's corner, they're scared of the base because they already know they have a rough road ahead of them, with them having to go up for re-election first before Trump does in 18. So they're not going to rock that boat unless they know that their base has eroded enough, which is kind of sad. They're not going to put country above party. If they feel like their base is abandoning Trump in droves, then you would see them come up and say, we would want to do impeachment hearings because it's going to make them look good to say we threw our own president and our own party away because we put country above.
I think that the roar for impeachment would have to be so much louder.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If their base erodes support, because right now he has very low approval ratings, but he still has, and he's lost some with his base, but he's still in the 40s with his in the upper 40s with his base. So until you see that really erode, you're not going to see Republicans getting up in droves to say let's do impeachment. The other hindrance is the Senate really needs to have 2/3 majority, so you need basically 67 to be able to have him impeached. So it could be the same thing like Bill Clinton. You could get the House to say he's impeached, but then the Senate doesn't, and he's still in office. The point is, will Trump actually stay for the full term? And that's the interesting thing. And now a majority of people actually say they don't believe he will.
Well, and we alluded to it earlier. My feeling is that if Donald Trump isn't president in 2020, not 2000, or is it? Yeah, 2020, whatever. In 2020, if he's not president, it's because he didn't want to be, or he found it to be too much of a headache.
Right.
Like, it could be building towards something like this, and he's like, oh, this is bad. I don't want to get impeached. I'm out.
I actually see the possibility for impeachment coming really soon.
No, but I do think with you, if enough people in his base are abandoning
make
him
that turn. And I think that the shift is
starting.
I think the shift is slowly occurring. I was even watching Fox News, and their tone was slowly shifting just today. And I know that that's just one step, but I can also see it with some of the congressmen and senators. But more importantly, we still have this other guy, Rod Rosenstein, who may potentially do his job, do what he needs to do, and appoint either special prosecutor, obviously if there's been a crime committed, which I believe there has been, or a committee, an independent committee to investigate this further. And there's clearly something there. We already know there's something there with Flynn. Look, you've got a guy, Flynn, who wanted to cut a deal. You don't cut a deal unless there's something that you've done wrong. Then you've got a guy, Trump, who's trying to get Flynn out of jail, essentially, clearly for a reason. There's obviously something there.
Comey.
And firing Comey. And of course, you guys know the entire timeline, but there's clearly something there, and I think that we'll get to it, hopefully, before 2020.
Right, I do too. But I do think he would resign before going through the impeachment thing.
I
because I don't
think that he would, actually. I don't think he'll resign. I don't think he'll quit.
I think he would be, and I think for two reasons. One is he can still get the benefits of the perks of the presidency, and he can run off and do a book deal or another reality show, make millions of dollars, and not have the headache of the presidency. But I think the other reason why he might resign is if it does stretch out to 2020 and he feels he won't win, he'd rather leave and then blame it on everyone else and say, look, and I've said this from the very beginning, even before any of this stuff came to light, I left, and now Mike Pence is the sacrificial lamb. He loses the election in 20. And Trump can point and say, look, if I was here, I would have won, and you guys pushed me out, and I had to leave, and because of that, we lost, and it's your fault.
I just feel like he's so stubborn.
No, but I think he would rather blame other people than go and take the loss.
He does like to blame others.
Because if he lost by a landslide in 20, that would be so humiliating for him. I think it'd be easier for him to quit and then blame other people.
I agree with the sort of the LBJ approach. Like, when you're convinced you're not going to win, you're going to step down, and that's the only thing.
Then take the fact of losing a humiliating loss.
But if that were to happen, that he was convinced he wouldn't didn't win re-election in 2020 and he did step down, he would say that, you know what, I always said I was only going to run for one term, even though, of course, he didn't say that.
Or I did what I needed to do to make America great again, and now
I
can
got
leave.
everything done. If
And
you
now
look
I'm
around,
done.
isn't America great?
Great again, yeah.
So, you know what, vote for my friend Mike Pence.
Exactly.
And then parentheses, or don't,
Yeah.
because he won't care at that point.
Right.
I think
But I do think that's either that or the other, and he won't want to go the humiliation of being impeached either,
Yeah.
especially if it's with Republicans.
Right.
He'd rather just walk away.
Brooke, hold your thought. I
Okay.
just want to get from the chat. Hero75, that's 2 E's, Hero. If Trump doesn't get anything done, then the base will start to leave Trump. They want him to get stuff done, and if nothing gets done, they will likely leave him. I think that's what we were saying. Trump will win in 2020. Storage Yard resident, our friend says. I think
someone else was watching from Moscow too, so that's pretty cool that you guys are watching over there.
Wait,
Fill
is
us in
Putin
on what
watching?
your media. Fill us in on what your media is saying.
It's
Their media's called
like
TOS,
Trump
right?
report. I would like to
Yeah,
know what my friend is up
exactly.
to. You know, look, I agree with Storage Yard resident in the sense that if the conditions and the sort of feeling in the country is similar to where it was at in 2016, which is impossible to predict. If you remember, you know, in 1991, no one ever would have imagined that George H.W. Bush wouldn't get reelected. He was so popular.
Right.
There was an SNL sketch of all the
Yeah.
Democratic candidates, you know, determining who's going to be the guy to lose to George
Right.
or lose to President Bush.
Yeah.
So a lot can change in that time.
Right.
But I look at this point, I don't think it's impossible because all this stuff, it's, you know, when you think of the things that there were against Trump
Right,
on
and
election
he
day,
still won.
yeah. So this is just like, oh, this
I
is
know,
all bad.
I know it's wishful thinking,
It
but
is.
I
Sure.
think the collusion will come to light. I think that he'll be impeached, but I think that in Nixonian ways, Pence or whomever ends up being the president, he'll resign only if he's, of course, pardoned. Same thing that happened with Nixon.
Right.
That's what I foresee.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's probably
Of course, it
easier
might be
said,
all a dream,
said than
like
done.
Biggie says.
But I also think compared to George H.W. Bush and the Clinton, 25 years ago, the electoral map is a lot different now, and we don't have quite that same back and forth. Of course, Obama won by what we'd consider today as a landslide both times. But I don't see Trump, just like George W. Bush, having the type of coalition that's really going to help him win in 20 at this point with the changing demographics. It's going to be so much harder for him because, like we talked about before, he has already lost 4% of the people that said they would vote for him again, and a lot of those states were by such tiny margins that he has no room for error. And part of the problem is he hasn't expanded his coalition at all, and I don't see how he's going to be able to do that because he has not proven himself to be able to do that. Yes, Americans have short-term memories. Things could change, the economy could get better, lots of stuff could happen, but I don't see the way things are going right now, and the fact that the economy's been in a growing period for the past 8 years, that's going to keep that momentum and all these other factors to be able to propel him to a really reasonable re-election. But at the same time, we haven't had an incumbent lose re-election since George H.W. Bush 25 years ago. So you could go both ways on that. You could say the averages are that it's likely he won't win re-election because, it's been a long time and people are already angry and upset and new people are coming out to vote. What's going to be telling is what's going to happen in these special elections over the next couple months, what's going to happen in the gubernatorial elections this fall for New Jersey and Virginia to kind of get a barometer of how 18 is going to be. And, once we go from there, we'll really see the mood of the country.
Come back to us after the 2018 elections, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it'll be very interesting to see, how that's all
say
shaping up.
Even in 17, even, the June special election with in the Georgia 6th with John Ossoff and Karen Handel. And then in the fall, those were the first barometers in 2009 when both of those governorships in Virginia and New Jersey flipped to Republicans at the time after Obama became president, and that became the sign of like the growing wave when the Republicans took over in 10. So we can start to see some of the trends now and what's going to happen this year, and he's definitely not helping any of his Republican friends right now. This year.
Speaking of getting new people in, who do you guys think? I'm like taking over your job.
No, please.
I just thought of something. Who do you guys think will be the FBI director that will be appointed?
Oh, it's funny
Do
you
have
mentioned the Republican governor of New Jersey because obviously, people were floating Chris Christie's name,
yeah.
and
Oh,
I was just
gosh.
like, wait, the guy who's like actually currently under investigation. The guy
Right.
who didn't get a job in the White House for whatever reason, Trump didn't give it. No, so it's not going to be him.
And
Christie's
Rudy
on the
Giuliani.
opioid
Rudy Giuliani was
Oh,
on that
God.
list.
Rudy
at one
Giuliani
point.
stopped running for president because he had
Yeah.
a headache. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine him wanting to be head of the FBI.
I think he needs to be hospitalized.
I think what Giuliani would like would be to be a Supreme Court judge. I think that's the sort of job that he would probably prefer to head of the FBI. But I don't know, because you hear those names, but that's just because people go to the who would be the worst people possible.
Well, and also we don't always know, because those are like the names, people know, but they don't know all the people toiling away that are the prosecutors and other people that are.
And I can't believe that he's even considering some of our Congress people, Republican Congress
Right. Well, I
people.
think he really has to take anybody political out of the equation, because
Exactly.
already that's going to pollute whatever chance he has of bringing someone that's going to come in and be able to say no. Because anybody that comes in that has a political slant, their credibility of the ongoing investigation is already going to be taken down, because they're going to be like, well, they're a Republican congressperson or
And the Senate already
politician
said there's
and-
no way that they're going to confirm someone who has an R behind their name or a D behind their name. Of course, that wouldn't happen.
Right, but it needs to not be someone who's in the political realm. It needs to
Right.
be someone who's kind
Well,
of clean
you know-
and disassociated from that.
It's an old reference that'll be lost on most of our audience. But if President Trump really wanted to show that he's impartial towards Russia, he could get someone who's always been very critical of Russia. Of course, I'm talking about funny man Yakov Smirnov, who really built a career on criticizing Russia. I think it's a good choice, although I don't think he's a citizen, but you could work that out. I think it can't be a political appointment.
Right, right.
And,
No, it can't be.
And honestly, whoever it is probably somebody that
Mike
we
Kelly's been floated
yeah,
around, I've heard
more
of.
than likely it'll be somebody whose name you might have read in an article but didn't stick with you because they didn't seem like someone that's significant. Do you have a thought, Brooke, as to who it might
Well, that's who I hear is the front runner. I guess Mike Kelly, this former New York City police commissioner, who apparently is independent. But I am seeing that he might be a little more right-leaning, and
he's
that's
still
why.
too politicized, I think. too.
Exactly. And then actually, there was the thought of Mike Rogers. I guess he was a past chairman of the House Committee. Again, I wouldn't ever want someone in who has congressional ties. I just don't know. He should bring Comey back. I mean, let's just really have some fun.
Well, the sad thing is, Comey was not even halfway through his term. FBI directors are there for
10
10-year
years,
terms
right?
to
Yeah.
try to straddle the different presidencies. So, there is the look of keeping it a little bit more nonpartisan.
How crazy would that be?
Yeah, I know. I was like, never
can't
mind,
have
I'm bringing him
stuff
back. I thought it was interesting that
My
Storage
bad.
Yard resident brings up about Herbert Hoover. I don't know where that came from, but
was
as
elected
far as
president
Trump-
without
Ever
ever
holding
holding elected office, but
Well,
he had been
that's true.
appointed to government office. I guess that's
I don't know,
in
but-
relation to FBI director, but
Right.
I'm
right.
I don't
quite
know,
sure.
because I was going to say that's like Dwight Eisenhower, too, not having any political office before experience. But I was going to say both of those men, Dwight Eisenhower and Herbert Hoover, at least Herbert Hoover had been a Secretary of Commerce and had actually worked in government enough to at least know a little bit more of how government worked, unlike Donald Trump. And Dwight Eisenhower was commander of World War II.
It's not a great
in general,
comparison.
knowing how that stuff, and was president of Columbia University, so he also
Yeah.
knew how to have that leadership skill. So you can't really compare. Not to mention Herbert Hoover was president in 28, and what happened?
Well,
in
I was going to
29,
say, Herbert Hoover did a
did
bang-up
not-
job with the economy.
he did not do a good
so-
job with the economy, so I'm not one that I would compare to with.
Yeah, I would try and stay away from that.
I
But
mean, I think Andrew McCabe is probably like the rational choice, but it's not going to happen.
No, and it still makes me nervous too. Even Andrew McCabe still makes me nervous. That
Why?
he's
Because
too.
of his wife's ties. His
Yeah.
wife ran
Yeah.
under the Democratic.
Yeah, no, I just. I,
He's too close to Comey.
I think
He's
yeah.
Comey's homie.
Comey's homie.
Comey's,
Exactly.
Hey, Comey's homies.
But I feel like
sorry,
him in the AG. I don't
It's
know.
someone who can relate to me, so those comments always get read on the show. Marty Waterman says, Yakov Smirnov reference, ... I'm old. Thank you, Marty. But Evangelina Cantu says, first time tuning in, welcome. And you are all really good about being impartial. Hey, we try, and that was always the goal. It's very difficult.
I think
with
when I'm
this.
on, you guys are more impartial.
Well,
try.
a little bit. I mean, Chelsea goes to lunch with Bernie Sanders and
She
his
loves
wife.
Bernie.
Yeah.
So,
She's a burner.
it's a little bit more biased. And of course, when Drexel happens to be here, look out. But look, we try. It's very difficult with this White House. If we had been doing this show with a different Republican president, that it might be a little bit easier to be impartial.
Like John Kasich, maybe I would be a lot more open to being like, okay, even though I don't agree with a lot of his policies, I feel like he's a little bit more in the middle as far as his governing.
Or Ted Nugent, I don't know. But anyway, but we appreciate everybody joining us in the chat. We only really have a couple more minutes, which is always the way it happens. I earlier referenced, sometimes you see a headline so quick and it gives you the wrong impression. I wanted to point out a headline that I misread, and I was like, no, he didn't say that. He couldn't possibly have said that. President Trump confident his travel ban is awful. And then I'm like, really? Oh, no, lawful. I was like, wait, why would he say that? Like, what's his game? He's really punking us the whole time. I was really excited, and then I clicked on it. I'm like, you idiot. You just didn't read it. But to bring up our final topic, he's convinced it's going to be upheld, and we're going to kick out everybody that doesn't go to his country club. He's going to kick out everybody who wasn't there for the light beer celebration on Capitol Hill. If you don't look like those people, you're probably out. But he's very confident, Scott. I mean, clearly, because they keep trying.
No, they just don't give up.
Yeah, it's good. It's like healthcare. They'll try again. I mean, I know it still has to. The Senate has to still get involved, but
which that's a whole other story that we've now
Senate,
forgotten about.
We just talked about how. Yeah, I know, because there's been so much else. Which mission accomplished if that was your goal. So. Anyway, there's a rumor that McCain is starting to rally Republicans against Trump.
Let's hope.
I'm surprised. I would be. There are a lot of people who President Trump spoke badly of during the campaign who have since come out and supported him. Ted Cruz being the most surprising one.
Paul Ryan.
Yeah, a little bit less surprising for Paul Ryan because of the job that he has. But, honestly, if John McCain, after he said, I like guys who don't get caught, I would be very disappointed in John McCain, who I met very briefly once, and he was a very nice guy. And when you think about what he went through, the fact that he could have gone home because of who his father was, and he stayed if they were going to hold on to everybody else. And, so if anybody's going to do it, it's John McCain. Right. And if John McCain's doing it, it's not because he holds that grudge. It's because he's like, no, this is what's best for the country.
He's a good, decent man, and he cares about America.
And let's be honest, Trump would never have lasted a day if he was in McCain's position there.
A half hour?
Yeah,
do you think he's got a half hour in him?
No.
Yeah, he's like, wait, your father is, yes, please let me out.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. Anyway, we didn't get to the topic of Betsy DeVos being booed, but who's surprised?
That was so good.
Oh, no, it was so good.
But, hey, we can always put that on the back burner. Because, Brooke, you'll be back with us next week.
Yes, two lessons.
Theory, Chelsea will be back with us. We'll see. But
Chelsea and I are going to take y'all on.
You know what? Scott and I might just sit off to the side and just put our feet up and let you guys hash everything out. That sounds like a nice little vacation. But anyway, for Scott Moore at S-Man80, for Brooks Elise at Brooks Elise TV, I am Christian DMZ at Christian DMZ. You can find me there. And of course, the show is at Trump Report ABTV. We will see you next Tuesday, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.